So when you're painting donuts, you can paint a donut hole. And you think that's funny, but think about how would you go about painting a rose that you're looking right into it straight? Paint a donut. Just paint a donut. And we know how to do that now. We know how to paint a hole, and we know how to paint a pod. So you paint the roundness of the donut, you paint the navel.
Glaze or sugar?
What?
Glazed or sugar?
That depends on what the weather's like. Okay. Now, do we have any more questions about what we have? I think we finished up pretty. We're an hour early. Good.
Really?
Yep, I think good. Any questions about something? Yes, ma'am.
Yes, it's totally unrelated, but it is color. I painted a yellow rose once, and I was at loss how to get the depth, really into the depth. I put chartreuse on it, but it didn't look
It didn't really quite get out the boat. Okay. Really go out in your garden, and if you don't have yellow roses, look at yellow flowers, and you'll see a color in there that will be in every yellow flower. Okay? It's just like clockwork. Okay? And it's red. Okay? So either get the center of that rose looking very reddish with your blood red, or put a little shadow with that red, okay? And you'll have a very nice look to it. Now, she put her chartreuse in there, and it really went bright green, didn't it? It went yellow green. It didn't go depth like it should have done. So how would you make that color look correct? What color would you mix together to make a chartreuse, or which color would you overlap to make a chartreuse?
Well, I know red and green make brown.
Okay. What does yellow and blue make?
Green.
Green. So shadow that rose, that yellow rose, with a little bit of light blue, and you'll have that nice chartreuse. On wet, or wet on fire. Okay? Take your color, your basic colors you use, which is about 12 colors. Make a stripe of yellow, mixing yellow, make a stripe of yellow brown, make a stripe of brown, make a stripe of pink, make a stripe of yellow red, make a stripe of blood red, and just follow all your colors like that. Fire it, and then do the same thing the opposite direction. And you'll see what yellow looks like on top of red and what red looks like on top of yellow. And you'll see that you can mix colors, wet or fired, the same way. Now, some colors look completely different. Like yellow-brown on pink turns orange. Pink on yellow-brown turns salmon. Some colors are exactly the same, and some colors, there's a big difference. Okay? So just always remember that. Sometimes when you're painting something, you have to really think what color it really is. So if you were going to paint a red cardinal, what color would you paint that bird to start with? Have you ever looked at a cardinal feather, just a feather?
Goes to the
What?
pink and red.
Pink. And it's more on the salmony pink, orangey pink instead of the pink pink. So you paint that bird pink, and then you start building your red on top of it. Okay? And then you would shadow, instead of shadowing with black, what color is that black really? Purple.
Purple.
Most of the time in nature, black is purple. Okay?
I've seen light blue on.
And light blue too, which is
black
in the
horse.
blue and purple are in the blue family. So you can be, some will be a deep shadow, some will be a light shadow. Always remember that when you want to get something. If you want to paint a black Labrador, what color would you paint it first?
Black what?
Labrador.
Light blue.
Light blue or
Artist taught me that.
what? Or even a red, because sometimes black Labradors are red-black and some are blue-black. Okay? So again, start that out. Start out the lightest to the darkest. Look at what the real color of it is first. If you want to paint a plum, they start out chartreuse, or even almost a light, deep blue-green. Sometimes they're about the color of the teal as her blouse right there. Set that up and work your purples and blues on top of that.
I would have gone light blue first.
Right. Instead of just pink. You can use pink, but also think of the chartreuse, because that's the color of it. Okay? So always think about things like that. And when it's not looking right, try a color you wouldn't try. And then you'll usually find the answer. So good question. Good.
I know on shiny black horses, you use light blue first.
Right. Right. But you could also use red, because like I said, there's a red black also. You know, people that have black hair can have a blue sheen to it, or they can have a red sheen to it. They're not just gonna have a brown sheen. You know, so you got to go that opposite direction sometimes. Experiment. Just experiment. I mean, once it's fired, you can see the difference usually before it's fired, if that's going to work or not work. So, any other questions about painting in general?
What do we fire this at?
Okay. That's a good question.
It is.
I used to fire very hot because I wanted to sink the colors down into the glaze really far. When I say oh hot, y'all are thinking 016, 017.
No, 015.
Right, 012, 013. Your colors will stay, if you have good colors, they will fire correctly at that temperature. Okay, they have a very range of temperature. They would start losing their color at probably an 06, which is a ceramic fire. Okay, they would start, you'd find your greens would turn blue, your blues might turn black, your reds would turn brown, those colors. Okay, so you have to see, but today there's no lead in the color, or very little lead. So it's harder to get that color to go into the glaze, okay? Now, so there's no need to really go hot because it's not going to go sink any further because there's no weight to get it into the glaze, okay? So 015, 016, 017 is a fine temperature. If you want the color to go into the glaze a little bit, now, some of you have some of y'all have computerized kilns and some of you don't. The ones that have computerized kiln, set your last ramp rate to anywhere from 1 hour to 3 hours. I think most of the time you can go 6 hours maximum. Okay? Now what that will do is it will turn your kiln into a convection oven. It will bring that temperature, the true temperature, up to it, hold it, then when it starts to go down, it'll build it back up. So really you should hold the temperature to get it to sink into the glaze further, keep that glaze open longer. So really about an hour is what you should have that soak period. Now, there is a ramp rate right in the middle where you're low or medium. It doesn't do a bit of difference. But when you get to high, take that ramp rate up and let it stay. 6 hours sinks that glaze that color way into the glaze. Absolutely gorgeous. That color that's on that big urn, that has been held for 6 hours. That deep purple blue that's on the bottom. And you see that jar that's got the gold on the inside? Flip it over and look at the bottom of it. That was actually in a kiln that I'm able to, that I let it stay at that temperature. I set and stayed with it for 12 hours to get that deep cobalt blue back. It's got a really nice sheen to it, okay? And then your color will go into the glaze further. And that's what you want to do. But you can't do anymore by firing them hot, okay? Now, if you do not have a computerized kiln, you can soak it, but you need to chain yourself to that kiln. Don't answer the phone. Don't answer the doorbell. If the house is burning down, stay with that kiln. Okay? Stick your button back in, and it will turn that kiln back on. Okay? And let it reach a higher temperature for about 15 or 20 minutes. You got to stay with it for 15 or 20 minutes, then turn your kiln off. Okay? That is taking that color up really hot, and it will take a little longer for it to cool, and it will stay at that high temperature that you want, the correct high temperature, for about 15 or 20 minutes. And that's enough to open that pore to that glaze up to make that color stick out. But do not leave that kiln because, you know what? Hey, your friend said, let's go shopping, and you went shopping, and you're going to have a bunch of melted porcelain at the bottom of that kiln, and your kiln's going to be all melted inside it where it just got hotter and hotter and hotter. So you've got it, if you don't have a computerized kiln, you've got to stick with it, okay?
So that's after it finishes.
After it's finished, you can just
And
stick
that's
that
all
button, and the thing is flipped down, you can stick that button in, and it will stay on.
And do it for 15 more minutes.
15 more minutes, max, 15, 20 max. Yes.
When you have, my kiln is a cone control kiln, when the cone breaks, it turns itself.
Okay.
So how would I continue?
Well, you have to turn your kiln off. Do you have the big cones or the little cones?
It's a kiln sitter where it snaps up and.
Oh, that's what I was just saying. There's that button that you push in to start it, just push it back in, and it'll start back up and stay there. You don't have to put your finger in the dice. You don't have to keep your finger there. It will stay in automatically.
So even without the cone in.
Without the cone and without the flip top. When you push it back in, it stays.
It'll come on, but you have to not walk away from it.
But you can't leave it. You can, I mean, 20 minutes max. And then you're gonna have to manually turn your kiln or unplug it. Okay? Turn it off or unplug it. Because it will just keep getting hotter and hotter. But you're not gonna be able to reach in that kiln and push that button back out. Okay? You're not gonna be able to do that. So you'll need to turn it off, and then when that heat gets down, that button will pop back out. I don't know why it's made like that. I don't, it shouldn't be made like that, really. But apparently it must be made like that because some people like, soaking kiln is a very old way of doing the kiln. They would, I have a kiln that I fired that I inherited one time from a China painter. It runs on kerosene. And you would keep feeding it kerosene. You had how you could tell the temperature is you had a color chart that you'd hold up the peephole and you'd know what temperature by the glow of the color was of the paper. And so then if you want, so what you do is you just keep dripping that kerosene to keep it that redness, orange red, glow red, whatever like that. And you'd have to sit there with it and you could soak it. That I did that once.
Why would have a major
When
fire?
we were in Europe, there was a couple places with very large tiles that were painted, and the antiquarian, whatever dealer, would tell us that the kiln master signed it and the artist signed it because it was just as much work to fire these big pieces as it was to paint.
All your porcelain that comes in the major factories have that on it. You'll see those stamp numbers that are stamped in there, or your initials.
Well, this was
Yeah, there'll be signatures or there'll be numbers. It depends on the factory and stuff like that. Now, firing big pieces that you want to fire a toilet or a sink and you have problems with them, no. The speed at which it goes up makes not one bit of difference. You can cook your chicken casserole in a cold oven and turn that oven on, or you can preheat it and it cooks just as well the same amount of time. Okay? The same thing with porcelain. It's going to break in the cooler. So if you're painting something that's got a thin place like that in one section and a thick place like that, when you turn the kiln off and 5 hours later you take it out of the kiln, it'll go ping because that area that's thick is still molten red inside. So your tension is greater. It's like taking a Pyrex dish that you took up to 500, it's going to crack when you take it out of the kiln. out of the oven. If you leave it in the oven and let it cool down naturally, it won't break. So when you're painting something that you're really wondering about, you turn the kiln off, it turns off, and you open up that kiln 24 hours later, and it won't break. Okay? Because it'll be stone cold. Okay? So when you're firing those pieces, the way you move it up makes no bit of difference. Yes.
On subsequent fires, do you still fire it at the same temperature, 015, or do you bump it up to 016?
I have to laugh because I have a huge collection of old China painting books and they explain this in it. Do you know why they would fire it at a low temperature and then build up higher? It's because at a low temperature, that surface of the china is rough. Thank you. Don't remember, I got my dishes. You can keep the color, but you have to keep some of the dishes back. When I have a student, like I told you, I didn't tell my students about sanders till they were ready to know about them. If I had a painter that was very light-handed and very pastel paint, I wouldn't sand her pieces. And then when she painted on it, the paint would grab thicker and she'd be painting the way I want her to paint, okay? If I had someone that was painting real heavy and dark, I'd polish the hell out of that porcelain and that paint would slip off of it. And that's why they would tend to plate if you put some tooth on it so the color would stick really good to it, okay? And then they would fire it and throw it up hotter and hotter. It really makes no bit of difference if you go high, low, or anything else like that.
I found, since I'm in a painting in a cold area, 65, and my kiln is out on the porch, and it was like 34 the other day. I I had to wait, put the piece in the kiln and then waited till the kiln and that piece were about the same temperature.
Before you turn it on.
Because I do
That,
have
I mean,
one break.
that really, yes, my kiln's outside too. I don't really worry about that. But I usually warm my kiln up before I start putting my pieces in anyway. Or sometimes I'll just start my kiln. When I start painting in the day, I'll start it, I'll have it on low, and then I start putting pieces in, and then when it really gets hot, that's when I close the lid, you know. So I'm constantly putting pieces into that hot kiln, okay? So you get, just warm up your kiln a little bit, you know. It's not gonna get away with that. And it's smart to put your kiln outside too, because they put off the kilns put off a very toxic fume, okay? And I'll tell you what they will do. The fumes will mat your china over time. The acid that's in those fumes will eat the glaze off the china, and it will have a matte finish. So if it's eating that glaze off the china, just imagine what it's doing to the inside of your lungs. And yeah, if you've ever opened up your kiln and you can't wait to get inside, it's a little warm, you open that kiln up and you go, and you just about lose your breath, well, those fumes will affect you right there. So again, it's better to have it outside because those fumes do it. Also, sometimes, you know, we're taught right and taught wrong and everything, but I found for the best of everything, for about 15 or 20 minutes, leave your lid totally open. Let all those fumes escape all at once, and you'll have less problems with things inside that kiln also.
You're talking before you fire?
While you're firing. If I start, I mean, sometimes I no longer use low, medium, high. I got a kiln, those switches don't even work. They're on high, and low and medium don't even work, okay, because they've been frozen up, because that kiln's 40 years old, it's frozen up. And I just plug it, I put it in, put the cone in there, leave that lid open, in 20 minutes I close it. Okay, sometimes it's glowing red when I do that, you know, but at least it gets all those fumes out at one time, okay, and that's important. And also with this lead, with no lead in it, it needs a lot of oxygen to burn that stuff off too. Okay, so leaving that lid open lets it have lots of oxygen to burn it off. I mean, if you don't have oxygen in that kiln, it doesn't burn off the bad stuff. Okay, so that's the best thing. And when I found out when they're firing in these big kilns, they usually really have the wind blowing out of it for about 20 minutes. When they do these big kilns like we're talking to Kiln Master. You know, that's usually something they do. Thank you for photographing. I hope we weren't too boring.
I enjoyed every bit of it.
Well, good.